Hello and welcome to another short video from me, Dr. Tom Kirk, at the Activism, Influencing and Change programme at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Today we're going to be talking about stakeholder mapping. We're going to cover why it's really important to understand your stakeholders' interests in and agency over the types of changes that you want to bring about as activists or influencers. And we're also going to explore some very basic and preliminary questions and research strategies that can help you to discern either. Ultimately, this is about improving your stakeholder mapping and helping you to design nuanced tactics to affect change. We begin by returning to the stakeholder map from the previous video on stakeholder mapping. We argued that this is a good example of a stakeholder map with multiple stakeholders included, different categories of stakeholder, and the breaking down of monoliths down to individual power holders that are going to be particularly important for seeing the types of changes that the activists want to bring about. But how did the activists know where to plot those individual stakeholders to arrive at this stakeholder map? When confronted by a blank stakeholder map and a list of potential stakeholders to put on the map, we'd argue that there are two important steps to help you begin to do this. The first one is to get a grip on the stakeholders' interests in order to decide how much they're likely to support your smart arse aims or to oppose them. What we mean by this is you've got to get inside their heads and work out what makes them tick. But it's really important in this stage that you do not reduce your stakeholders, whether they be an individual, a population group, an institution, an organization, etc. Do not reduce them to stereotypes. By this we mean don't assume that just because they're a CEO, they're only interested in the bottom line, or because they're a political leader that power is their main motivator, or if they're an influencer or celebrity that it's about prestige. Stakeholders are inevitably more complex than they appear at first and are motivated by a range of different factors that you need to spend time researching and trying to get an understanding of. The second step is to somehow decide what level of power particular stakeholders have over the kinds of changes that you want to see in the complex system you're trying to influence. Every stakeholder is going to have a different level of space and capacity in order to affect change, and discerning what gives them that capacity, what gives them their power, is going to be contextually contingent for each system that you're trying to change. Some stakeholders will derive their power and their capacity from the resources at their disposal, others from their ability to mobilize people, others from their legitimacy within different institutions, formal and informal. It's your job to work out where they derive their power and whether they can put that to use, affecting the types of changes you want to see. When you're thinking about the levels of support a particular stakeholder is likely to give you and how much they agree with the smart arse goals that you want to see brought about, there's a series of questions you might want to explore or have a go at trying to answer. For example, do you know what they want? Is it clear? Is it there somewhere publicly, on record, or is there a way you can quickly find that out? Do you know if they're acting or the way they're likely to approach that issue is shaped by either their moral norms or some kind of social norm? Remember from previous videos that we said that moral norms are quite often quite challenging to change, whereas social norms, there's a lot more scope for activists to begin to change or work upon them. You might also want to think about who influences that particular stakeholder and who do they listen to. These are all the types of questions that can help you to get a handle on stakeholders and whether they support you or not. Another set of simple questions can begin to help you to unpick the levels of power or agency stakeholders have to affect the kinds of changes you might be advocating for. You can ask simple questions of whether they're the key decision maker within a particular institution, chain or society. Do they have potential coalition partners that they can turn to help affect the change? Is the stakeholder playing chess on more than one chessboard? For instance, are there several goals that they have that might be conflicting with their ability to move and make a change? Do they have the right framings of issues that are likely to cause the change, or do they perhaps need help with that? And are there particular moments or their decision points clear when they could use their power to affect change? Again, this is just a simple set of questions that could be asked amongst others to help you begin to get a level of where to plot your stakeholders on a particular power map. To help you to answer the types of questions seen on previous slides, it's very likely that you're going to have to engage in some research on your stakeholders, whether they're people or organisations. Nowadays, people and organisations are generally, if they're well known, are going to be online. There's plenty of information contained in organisational websites or personal websites. You can turn to LinkedIn if they're individuals. You can find copies of CVs. Prominent members of societies are likely to have been interviewed in the media or been on podcasts. Less prominent members of society, you might be able to look into their family, perhaps speak to them. You might be able to get a handle on who they are from knowing a little bit about their beliefs, important life events that's happened to them, even their investments or their business interests. With organisations, many organisations nowadays have websites in which you can read about their mission statement. You can get copies of their annual report or their strategic positioning papers. Particularly with governments are always releasing policy papers in the form of white papers or think pieces. You can often also get information on their funding sources to help you think about their levels of power. And again, the media, prominent organisations you're likely to want to influence are going to have a wealth of media, critical and friendly, on them. Sometimes, if organisations aren't online, you might have to do some of this research firsthand, speaking to people who know the stakeholders, or firsthand or secondhand, or trying to get information from perhaps people who study particular population groups or societies to understand what makes them tick and where they may lay on a particular issue or problem you're trying to solve. When you're confronted by having to plot a particular population group onto your map, a good place to start can be by creating a profile of a typical group member. Here the goal is not to stereotype members of that group, but instead to arrive at generalizations that will later be useful when we come to design tactics that are able to influence or empower them. The kinds of questions you might want to conduct research into when you're creating your typical group member might concern their age ranges, their levels of income or education, where they live, the types of families or size of family that they're likely to have, their current behaviours, where they spend their social time, where they go on a holiday, for instance, where they consume their media or get their news from. Are they often online, or are they listening to the radio, for example? And importantly, who do they listen to? Who are they influenced and motivated by? Is it a politician? Is it a social media influencer? Is it members of their own household, or the people in their social network? You might even begin to think about how best you can engage them, or where they're likely to be when they are more susceptible to being influenced. All of these questions can help you to plot groups onto your map, and they're particularly important when you're designing what are called public or outsider tactics, designed to engage and influence large numbers of people at one time. In fact, we'll be returning to that in a later video.